World on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, finally makes a decision to return to the Inter-Party Advisory Committee of the Electoral Commission ahead of the 2024 general elections. We ask, will their return make any difference? We'll tell you exactly what Johnson Esiedun Ketia said earlier today here on Ghana Tonight. Stay with us. Also, the consumer price inflation for November 2023 sees a significant drop from 35.2% in October to 26.4%. Is this a proof that things are getting better for the ordinary Ghanaian in the country, or how does this relate to your own personal economy? Tell us about it here on Ghana Tonight. Let's get into also the Electoral Commission of Ghana has put forward a proposal for the 2024 polls to close at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. We hear from the major stakeholders, the political parties, where they stand on this matter here on Ghana Tonight. An integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. There's a poll already running on our Facebook and X pages. What we're asking is, are you in favor of that proposal by the Electoral Commission to have polls close at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. About 1,000 people have so far voted on this. We'll show you the results as we go on here on Ghana Tonight, but you're not too late if you want to do that now. As always, let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is on Facebook and X is Ghana Tonight. Let's hear your voice. We'll definitely read the thoughts as you share with us to you and to the rest of the world. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The legislative instrument to operationalize Narcotics Control Commission and Management of Cannabis Regulations 2023 has been laid in Parliament. The LI seeks to streamline the use of cannabis for medicinal purposes after the parent law was passed by Parliament.
The young man abusing weed in this country is not going to take whatever he got to a laboratory to test the HTC content before he smokes. And THC. And none of you is ever talking about the potential of abuse and how that can degenerate into mental health problem we already have in this country. Why are we pretending that this is going to solve our problem?
Some residents of the Western North region are questioning government's suspension of Cocoa Road's contracts awarded under the erstwhile National Democratic Congress NDC administration. The new Patriotic Party administration, on assuming office, suspended Cocoa Road project for forensic audit into their award. But 7 years on, there is intense pressure on NDC flag bearer John Mahama to resume these contracts if he wins the December 7, 2024 polls.
2016, Abraham Wohono. Cocoa Sika, your koji free Amanone, your friend with syndicated loan. About $2 billion and the deba Ghana ha. Also, and then so there are fee 800 million po ye bray ansana banks ni be epinese on be my $800 million. Ya breast ye the $2 billion and the deba Ghana muha.
The opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, has accepted to rejoin the Inter-Party Advisory Council IPAC meetings with the Electoral Commission following an intervention by the National Peace Council. The national chairman of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun Ketia, announced this at a stakeholders meeting on inter-party dialogue organized by the National Peace Council at Pejase in the Eastern Region on Thursday.
On behalf of the party, to accept the appeal from the National Peace Council that we should consider returning to IPAC. But we want to return to IPAC and not any other forum. So the other side is for us to work to make sure that IPAC returns to its consensus building ways.
The presidential and parliamentary elections in 2024 will start at 7 a.m. and end at 3 p.m. if the Electoral Commission (EC) succeeds in securing approval for this proposal, which is contained in a constitutional instrument. Electoral Commission Chair Jean Mensah is convinced the creation of additional polling stations would enable voting to go faster, thereby justifying the need to reduce the voting time by 2 hours.
In the past, we had a high threshold, some thousand and more, and of course our kits did not function as they should, and so you would find that we had several people in the queue for long hours. And we believe that with the system we have put in place, reducing the threshold, increasing the number of polling stations, and of course with the robust kits that we intend to deploy, we will be able to move at a faster pace.
The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRATS, is requesting the Ghana Education Service to stay off dealing with the interdicted heads and allow the unions in education to address the issues. President of NAGRATS, Angel Kabunu, was addressing a news conference in Accra.
That this matter, the unions want to take over, and that the unions want to have discussion as intermediaries with you on this matter. So communicate with Director General that we, the leadership of the union, will now want to take over this matter, sit with you, and then we discuss it and we see how we bring this matter to a fruitful end.
Well, there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, has finally made that decision to return to the Electoral Commission's Inter-Party Advisory Committee, that's IPAC, ahead of the 2024 general elections. We ask what this decision, the impact it would have going forward. And this conversation about the NDC withdrawing from its participation in the IPAC meetings is 3 years old. After the 2020 elections, they had a number of concerns about how the Electoral Commission conducted itself during the 2020 elections and the aftermath of it. Now, recall that the former chairman of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan, had impressed upon the National Democratic Congress to consider returning to the Inter-Party Advisory Committee a number of months back. Now, this is what he said should be the consideration for the NDC. Take a look.
I think that of singular importance is the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. The IPAC makes it possible for political parties to know and make input to the important thing the Electoral Commission is doing at any point in time. It makes it possible to discuss concerns of the parties, and it makes it possible to contribute to the making of subsidiary legislation. I would appeal to the NDC to go back to the IPAC, if you have not already gone, madam. All right. So, of singular importance is there. So don't worry about it. They don't take my ideas. Don't do that. Please go there and make your ideas carried and felt.
Well, so that's Dr. Kojo Afari-Gyan. He was at an NDC meeting, a platform of the NDC lawyers at the time, that he made this call to them to consider. Well, a number of months on, today, the chair of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Esedun Ketia, indicated that, yes, the party has now given consideration to all of these calls coming from both the former chair of the EC, the National Peace Council, and then also Christian Council, a number of people in groupings actually making this proposal, the call to the NDC. But this decision to rejoin IPAC is not without some conditions or expectations from the NDC. This is Johnson Esedun Ketia.
So we want, on behalf of the party, to accept the appeal from the National Peace Council that we should consider returning to IPAC. But we want to return to IPAC and not any other forum. So the other side is for us to work to make sure that IPAC returns to its consensus building ways. We cannot do all that today, but I'm sure the National Peace Council will continue from where we leave off today to ensure that the issues that have been raised and tabled that were blocking our return, those ones will be dealt with before the next IPAC meeting.
Well, that's Johnson Esedun Ketia detailing the expectations that they have or they want to see in place, even though they consider joining the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. In fact, Dr. Asante, I beg your pardon, is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Dr. Asante, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. First of all, this is a call that you have also made over time that the NDC should consider joining the IPAC again after it withdrew 3 years ago from the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. What are the takeaways from this decision over this 3-year period, even though the party has decided to rejoin?
I think it's a good thing that finally NDC has joined the IPAC one more time. But for me, there are lessons that we need to learn as a society from this. It is important to state here that the NDC absence has really created a learning curve for all of us to learn that if you have a body such as IPAC, which is an advisory but very important body, the chair of that body needs at all times to be neutral and have the humility to listen to concerns, however painful they may be. But when one wants to lord it over any of the groups under this umbrella, obviously it will not wash. And that is exactly what the NDC has demonstrated over the years. And for me, it's important to put on record that it is a good demonstration of their commitment to democracy. When they are dissatisfied with certain arrangements and processes, they will tell you they will not hesitate to take a decision that they think it will be in the interest of the state. From the other perspective, we can also say that, yes, the Electoral Commission and other groups have learned that they can be masters of their own game, and that to be able to build a solid institution such as IPAC, they need all hands on deck to be able to kickstart any program. So the issue of, consensus building, the issue of collegiality, the issue of togetherness, fighting for the common interests of this country should be paramount, and that should eclipse any other interests within the political realm of the IPAC.
Indeed. And to all of those considerations that you expect from the Electoral Commission, Dr. Asante, thank you. But please stay with me, Dr. Asante. Let's go to the next issue coming up here on Ghana Tonight, because it's still related to the Electoral Commission and matters arising. They've put forward a proposal for the 2024 polls to close at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. We hear from the major stakeholders. We're talking about the major political parties, NPP and NDC, and their stance on this matter here on Ghana Tonight. And Dr. Asante, thank you for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. But this is what the chair of the Electoral Commission, Jen Adokwa-Mensah, said at that same forum where Johnson Esedun Ketia spoke earlier today about this proposal to have polls close at 3 p.m., start 7 a.m., close at 3 p.m., instead of the 5 p.m. that we've been used to over the past elections we've had. Take a look.
To close the polls at 3 p.m. Our experience in 2020 revealed that by 1 p.m., 70% of our polling stations were empty of voters, as most voters had cast their votes. This made it possible because the threshold for most polling centers, as I mentioned, was reduced to 500 voters per polling station. In the past, we had a high threshold, some 1,000 and more, and of course, our kits did not function as they should. And so you would find that we had several people in the queue for long hours. And we believe that with the system we have put in place, reducing the threshold, increasing the number of polling stations, and of course with the robust kits that we intend to deploy, we will be able to move at a faster pace. If you compare the turnout in 2016 to that of 2020, in spite of the hassle-free process in 2020 and the lack of long queues and lines and so on, we had a voter turnout of 79% plus compared to 67% in 2020. And so we believe that if we should implement this process and this policy to the fullest, we'll have a smooth process. And by 3 p.m., of course, if people are in the line at 3 p.m. and it has to go on till later, they would still be registered. It is not to say that the polls come to an end at 3 p.m.
Well, so that's Jen Mensah detailing why the EC is putting forward this proposal for the elections on December 7, 2024 to start at 7 a.m. and at 3 p.m. Bear in mind, next year, December 7, it will be a Saturday, right? And so a number of things that come to play. But we are very used to some challenges on election day in this country. And take a look at this. This is just a few of the many challenges that we are confronted with on election day in this country. Take a look. This is what we enumerated. Late start of polls is very, very common on election day in this country. Network challenges, you would always hear, as we will bring to you the reports on your election command center, issues of network challenges, and these BVRs are not connecting. The BVR machines, that's biometric voter registration machines, malfunctioning as well is one of the challenges you experience on election day. Fingerprint identification challenges, people the fingerprints don't match what is in the system. That also causes some delay. Facial identification challenges, we saw a lot of this in 2020 where people's facial identification was not matching what was in the system. Voter challenge process, so when people turn up and there's the challenge procedure there where people can challenge the eligibility of some people who turn up, whether they are 18 or below and so on. All of those things also creates some delay. So taking all of these challenges that happen on election day into consideration, would it be feasible for the Electoral Commission to achieve this 3 p.m. polls closure period that they are proposing? I've been joined on the telephone by Richard Ahiagba, is the Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party. And then also Mustafa Gbande is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. I'll start off with you, Mr. Ahiagba. You are a major stakeholder in this election 2024. Now, taking into consideration all of these challenges we have enumerated, which is very characteristic of our election day in this country, will this proposal of the Electoral Commission be feasible, and considering the impact?
Thank you, Alfred. For us in the New Patriotic Party, I think that we received that news. I think it's not a new proposal. They're just only giving us a further justification why they think it will work. We're receiving that with cautious optimism, with the understanding that they would ensure that no voter is denied the occasion to vote if they are in line and they are qualified. And then also, apart from people being in line before 3, if for one reason or the other, in some places where people have to travel long distances to come to the police station, sometimes people are working, they plan to come later. We hope that those situations would not come up and a good number of people will be disenfranchised. If they can assure us the comfort that the police station will work efficiently, they will start on time. I think that the general wisdom behind the change to close 3 p.m. is to ensure that the other activities that follow the close of the polls, counting, transmitting the data, collating, and all of that are done before dark. That is appreciated, but we need to be careful that it would not disenfranchise people because they close early. If those assurances are given, I think that the New Patriotic Party would appreciate closing early. But now we're not sure that will be the case, and the EC will have to do a bit more to give us that comfort.
A proposal that beyond it being captured in the constitutional instrument before that they intend to submit to Parliament, it's one that you, as political parties, you want to have a forum to have a conversation on. So your views will be heard, and then you want the Electoral Commission to convince you further, correct?
Yeah. Yes, Alfred. Because if you look at it carefully, the essence of our democracy is for people to express themselves. So that if we are taking precautions to ensure there's no chaos, to finish on time, if that inadvertently is going to disenfranchise people, then we're undermining democracy by trying to close early and to be efficient and to prevent whatever we're trying to prevent, by closing early. So we must grant the full process to people, the occasion for them to exercise that, because without voting, there is no democracy. So our fear is that if it is not the process is not efficient as they envisage it, if any glitch happens on the day, so imagine there are overseas places where ballot boxes may, voting materials may delay, and so therefore the poll may close or start late after the 7 o'clock mark that they anticipate. If it happens that way, then is it a case that those people will be expected to also close at 3 p.m.? So they must give us some understanding of how that is going to work, so that people, Ghanaians, do not get disenfranchised because of this measure. And if that is done, I think that we all appreciate, and I particularly appreciate, and I can tell you that that is the position of my party, appreciate that we close early so we can go through all the processes while there's daylight. But that should not be a decision against the exercise of people's franchise. So we need to engage that conversation a bit further, and the EC will have to ensure that its processes, or assure us that its processes will be able to accommodate early start to ensure that they close early as they anticipate. You know, in 2024, I know you voted. The polling station where I voted in Ketu South, they've broken down the polling station, so voting was fast and people were voting as quickly as possible. So the numbers were not that large in one particular polling station. What used to be one polling station in my polling station where I've been voting since I was 18, that polling station has been broken down, I think, into 2 or 3 polling stations on the same premises. So the numbers were shifted, which allowed for people to vote faster. So that was good. If we can be assured of that, and people will come in early and vote, and by 3 o'clock we can have the bulk of the people voting, and to allow us to close early is a good proposition, but we just make sure that people don't suffer any consequence by the EC trying to close early.
Nobody should be disenfranchised in that process. But let me bring in Mustafa Bande as well, who's Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. What's the NDC's take on this Electoral Commission proposal to have the polls close or election end on December 7 at 3 p.m.? That proposal. What's the NDC's take on this?
Well, let me state that technical officers and directors of the NDC are simply analyzing this procedure. But on the hand side, the Electoral Commission have not been able to give political parties and the people of Ghana the disadvantages, clear disadvantages, systemic challenges that a 5 o'clock has posed to the legislative process. If the Electoral Commission can bring credible systems and machines and get to voting centers on time, increase the number of polling stations to the extent that we do not have queues beyond the time that it is estimated. Why not? We would want to have elections where, under the particular circumstance that in 2020, Nanado and government used them to undermine credibility of election by intimidating people. If we can deal with this kind of menace, political parties will be excited. But that depends on the assurance that the Electoral Commission will be able to convey registration material, machines, and its officers will start work on time. We have had circumstances where up to about 11, 10 elections haven't started in various polling stations or polling centers. And that's a major cause of the queue that you see when the time has come to a close. So once we can deal with the fundamental issues, we believe that the Electoral Commission is under the obligation to exonerate itself by building credible systems and also restoring its credibility. Political parties like the NDC is willing to support the Electoral Commission to build a transparent, rigging-free, conflict-free election. So they must come out and give us the roadmap, and the roadmap must get consensus. That is why we say that the purposes of IPAC should build consensus. Once we are able to build consensus around political parties, and we are all convinced that this particular initiative will offer a transparent, credible, free and fair election, the NDC will be for it ultimately.
Okay. Musa, thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Thank you, Musa Bande. And Richard Agba, thank you as well for joining us. Appreciate it. Okay. Richard Agba is Director of Communication of the NPP, and Mustafa Bande is Deputy General Secretary as well of the NDC, having their take on this proposal by the Electoral Commission to end polls at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. That even with that, you still have a lot more people in the queue to vote, or in some cases, because voting doesn't start at 7 a.m., a number of polling stations are forced to extend the voting time beyond 5 p.m. A number of you and I, who are also stakeholders in the election, have been sharing your thoughts with us. We put a question on our Facebook page and our X page as well on TV3 Ghana. Take a look at this. A number of you have been sharing your thoughts with us. And we said, do you support the proposal by the Electoral Commission to end voting by 3 p.m. instead of the 5 p.m. on December 7th? 69% of the 1,149 of you who voted say no. 31% say yes. We had 1,149 votes, as you see on the screen. 69% say no, it shouldn't be 3 p.m. 31% say yes. And 8,266 of you have viewed this poll. This is the voice of the people. And so that is critical in the scheme of things. And the Electoral Commission must also be considering some of these polls and opinions expressed. But a number of you have been sharing more beyond just voting, sharing your thoughts. This one here from Felix Selom Hosu says, the general election on December 7 must be a holiday. Well, it's a Saturday. Next year, December 7th is a Saturday. So it says most of the people that vote on that day are unemployed. You say, thank you. One term and this, you're talking about the EC chair, wants to change what has been there since. What's her motivation, actually? You say, Kwame Yeboah, thank you. This one here from Uneme says, they are aware many people will come out and vote in this 2024 election to unseat the sitting government. So they want to limit the time available. Only God knows what these people are planning this time around. There was no data backing her claim. Aside that, she can't use 2020 COVID period as a yardstick for such supposed time change. Nana Kwesi Eshan. Nana, thank you so much for your thoughts. And many of you, in fact, we had close to 300 of you sending us your comments on this matter. We appreciate all the feedback and the interaction you're having on this issue. Thank you so much. Dr. Asante, I bring you in at this point, hearing from the major political parties and taking into consideration the evident challenges that we're faced with on election days in this country. Will this proposal be one that will be feasible, or you expect the EC to push through?
I don't know where they are coming from, but I'm sure maybe it's based on sound research and reasoning. Other than that, from what you and I know, I believe that is going to be difficult because even the normal times, we have challenges. So if you want to reduce it by 2 hours, then all things being equal, we are saying that it's likely to pose a problem. But hey, they are behind the driving wheel. So I think they are in the best position to give us more information about what they feel should be the case.
About the inherent challenges which we enumerated not too long ago. Now, has the Electoral Commission demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt the capacity to address these challenges that are very evident on election day for them to even consider this?
Yeah, they try to do their best, but we keep on having more problems after one election. So it's a difficult thing. I don't know how they want to handle this, but my advice to them is that if for nothing at all, they should be able to make sure that we have election that is not compromised in any way. For instance, we don't want to see any group of people who, because of this decision, are going to be disenfranchised. They know that will not bode well for the election that we are going to have come 2024. We also want to have a situation where the problems that previously we've had, this decision will not compound it. We expect nothing but an improvement over the past experience so as to usher us into a new election that is free from all the evils that rear their ugly heads in democracies where there are difficulties and where sometimes it creates problems. We believe that they should be able to manage all these issues very well so that at the end of the day, our democracy get all the support for it to grow and grow very well. But the conversation has started about it, how people feel they are going to vent out their grievances and all that. But this is the time the EC have to listen and listen with rapt attention so that where their research point to something that is going to create a problem, they quickly have to rise to the occasion and fix it. They need to also listen to voices and see which of them make the best sense to make sure that the process is nothing but foolproof for us for the system to gender the type of confidence that it requires. Remember, election is hinged on confidence and credibility. Once you suffer a crisis in of this, I'm afraid you throw the election to the dogs. But I'm not sure that is what the EC is working at. So at this point in time, I expect the public to bring all the ideas, all the problems that they anticipate that are going to characterize this type of proposal so as to find lasting solution for them. We need to build into this democracy a solid system that is robust, that has the capacity to withstand all shocks and to be able to deliver the public good.
Confidence, credibility, deliver the public good. Thank you so much, Dr. Asante. Appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. He is a senior lecturer, Political Science Department, University of Ghana, Legon. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, consumer price inflation for November sees a significant drop to 26.4% from 35.2% in October. Now, what is the impact of this, especially on your own personal inflation? What's the state of affairs? Does it directly reflect what you experience on the market? And what does this rate really mean? Stay with us because we will get into the details of this inflation rate as has been announced right after this quick break here on Ghana Tonight.
Enterprise mamunyina afishia pa ni e ka twa mu se ye damo ase ma mu free achichi ne bencheye a mo beto ade wa ha mako ankrankran eni wholesales fo nyina ye damo nyina ase afisese ne nyankopan yo bia koma so ade ama no ni e kai mo se yegusu edidwa nti say ye mobile phones, television, air conditioner, laptops, accessories, speakers, tabletop fridges, chest fridges, double decker fridges, washing machine, Franco Trading Enterprise. But to be kocha o maame, o papa, wa danfo, bibia ye obi wa hanum say. Obetimi so afre numbers ya e wo screen so, anase obekọ your website so www.francotrading.com. Franco Trading Enterprise. Ye mamu nyina fishia pa.
Now it's Christmas time.
Spruce up your home for the holidays with our stunning collection of furniture at incredible prices. From cozy sofas to elegant dining sets, find the perfect pieces to create a warm and inviting space for your festive gatherings. Don't miss out on these merry deals. Elevate your home and celebrate the season in style with our Christmas furniture sale. Let's begin your home makeover journey at Dubai's leading furniture house, Danube Home.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathy Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathy Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathy Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chesena me ankasa me period na se problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chesena nya asem ketewa na me coin point no mo hwe me modem no mo hwe bibia na so mo meduro me fire no ene ma won kra mienu hofro kwa na mkwan mu a eba
and everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama nunu a ene ne ho eden a watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you of Acrobato. Hello hey ohwehwe what che okay a free bra wo di end point what dance am me call you no me Joseph Sema na enkoyie empeso na maye mre nyina na magina sebema na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathy Clinic. I'm free.
Serene, pristine, natural. This is Maha Beach Resort, set on the seafront in Atuabo and the rich oil and gas hub of the western region. The warmth of the resort can fill your soul. Our well-receptive environment brings you home away from home. The strand of beauty detailing the state-of-the-art facility makes your stay even more fun within the well-thought-through architectural features, hosting all sorts of fun games. Maha Beach Resort has an assortment of packages for all occasions. Maha Beach Resort, redefining indigenous hospitality.
Let's go! Get ready for Ghana's biggest comedy night, Romano's Incomplete 5, the AVV experience.
Asama, we were talking about your penalty, no? And today, I know with him.
Featuring Foster Roman, others on the bill, Lexi the Comic, Putogo, Chemical, Jeffrey Naughty. Rate is 150 Ghana Cedis regular and 250 Ghana Cedis VIP. Each ticket comes with a 5 kg of AVV rice. Dial *71 3*33*05# to purchase that ticket. Time is 7 p.m. sharp at the National Theatre on Friday, 22nd December. Proudly supported by AVV Rice, GH Schools, Ebony Condoms, Onga, GT Travel Consult, and Mega 6 Lotto. Call 026-139-1099 for further inquiries. Romano's Incomplete 5, the AVV experience. See you.
Chartered Institute of Realtors presents the biggest property festival set to hit Ghana this December. It's the Ghana Diaspora Property Festival, an event designed to promote investment in the Ghanaian real estate market. The date is 22nd and 23rd of December. The venue, Accra International Conference Center. The time is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Oh yes, come with your family and friends and interact with a diverse array of exhibitors, including local and international property developers, construction firms, construction equipment manufacturers, suppliers, sanitary ware companies, home appliances, and decor firms, among others. The side attractions for this event include the Kids Playground, art exhibitions, and many more. To register for this event, call 0302-792-589 or 0273-300-075, or you can email us at GhanaDiasporaPropertyFestival.com or sign up on eventbrite.com for more information. This event is open to all.
Franco no man I go aye channel. Mr. Cabranti be our bride from saying. Ma Mary and the day now beto ye.
Me beto phone wa Franco.
Me beto printer.
So me beto double decker fridge.
Eti Franco say so choose ye na beto ade wo ha no. Gonya ye ncha wade. Ye ne ye ma no.
Money bag, any t-shirt in a front.
Eti Franco say official po. Mami say hu ka. Mami ka bi chair Franco mami. Ka bi chair Franco mami.
Franco Trading Enterprise with the master. Bonya ya ne mu na edi. Obi biara meto ade wo Franco ne ncha na de.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. Now, for the fourth consecutive time, inflation has dropped, but this time significantly to 26.4% in November, now representing an 8.8 percentage point decrease from the 35.2% recorded in October 2023. Now, here's a government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, giving details and some highlights earlier today. Take a look.
From a food and non-food perspective, we saw a 10.5 percentage point difference, with food inflation 32.2% relative to 21.7% for the month of November 2023. The decline in food inflation was much steeper than the decline in non-food inflation, with food inflation dropping by 12.6 percentage point, while non-food inflation dropped by 6.0 percentage point. We continue to see the dominance of imported items inflation, recording a relatively higher rate of inflation of 27.1% relative to locally produced items 26.1%.
Well, so you hear the government statistician talk about the headline inflation and then food inflation. When you go to the market, what's your experience? That's what we're asking on our Facebook page. Share your experience with us, because we're talking about inflation has been on the consistent decline. And take a look at this. I'm going to do a trend analysis of the inflation rate right from January to November. And you will understand why a number of people are asking significant questions as to the impact of this rate on the real economy. What we experience when we go to the market. Has the prices of items that we buy gone down this month? Because we're talking about inflation, which is the measurement of the price changes in goods and services over a certain period of time. January, we started off this year with 53.6% inflation rate, 53.6%. And that led to a number of reactions, as we saw. The cost of credit went very, very high because of the Bank of Ghana's pursuance of the inflation targeting for the setting of the policy rate. February, 52.8%. It went down a bit. Then we saw it go down again in March, 45%. Then in April, 41.2%. Then we saw just a little increase in May, 42.2%. Then it went up a bit by 0.3% to 42.5% in June. Then in July, we saw it also go up again to 43.1%. Then in August, it started the consistent decline from 43.1 to 40.1%. Then from 40.1% in September, 38.1%. 35.2% in October, and now we are talking about 26.4%. Here's what the concern is, that if there's been this consistent decrease in the inflation rate as we have seen over the period, how much of it has impacted on, for instance, the policy rate, especially because the Bank of Ghana is pursuing this inflation targeting. And if the policy rate goes down, it impacts on the reference rate, which also impacts on the interest rate, so that the cost of credit, interest on loans, will go down as well. And then that would have a cascading effect on the economy. And how about you as well? What's the state of your personal inflation in your pocket? Now, Dr. Edu Owusu-Sarkodie is a lecturer at the Economics Department, University of Ghana, Legon. He's joining us. Dr. Sarkodie, thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Now, for the people who are watching now, inflation 26.4%, and they're asking themselves, you know what, I went to the market. My experience is very different from what you're talking about. Does this reduction in inflation necessarily mean that people are going to experience a reduction in prices?
Far from that, Alfred. We are talking about disinflation. When the inflation rate is being reduced, that's disinflation. And I think what people are talking about is deflation. We haven't gotten to the level of deflation where you expect prices to go down. But it is good news that we are experiencing this disinflation because, as we all know, inflation is the reduction in the purchasing power. So when the reduction in the purchasing power has slowed, it is good news. Let's liken inflation to the speed of a car, that if you are driving 100 kilometers per hour and you reduce the speed to 60 kilometers per hour, it does not mean that the car is reversing. It only means that the car is still moving forward, but the speed has been reduced. So what we can understand is that the speed with which prices increase have reduced, has slowed down, and I think it's better. Another way to look at it is maybe a thief that steals your money, which is a purchasing power. So in the past, the thief was stealing 35 cedis. Now the thief is stealing 26 cedis instead of 35. The thief is still stealing your money, which is a purchasing power, but the amount of the money he steals has been reduced. The issue of inflation is that the 26% that we are talking about is the average inflation for the country. So that's why if you go to the website of the Ghana Statistical Service, you see that in their analysis, they project that some regions would experience higher inflation than the national average, and other regions will experience a lower inflation than the national average. So depending on where you stay, if you live in Accra or another area, your inflation rate in the region may be higher or lower than national average. And then we also come to the individual inflation or the personal inflation. So depending on the number of items that you consume most, it is likely that you feel the inflation more in your pocket than someone else. So if the inflation rate for fuel, for example, it is very high, around 60% or 50%, and you consume fuel much, it means that you feel the impact of inflation more in your pocket or on yourself than somebody who doesn't consume more fuel. So the simple understanding is that, yes, inflation reduction, which is disinflation, is good, but it does not mean a reduction in prices. It only means that the rate at which prices increase in the country have slowed down. And it is good news. We know the reason. The government is practicing what we call a tight fiscal policy and tight monetary policy. In other words, the government is measured in its expenditure. It is not spending beyond its means. This year, for example, we saw a cut in expenditure of 20 billion Ghana cedis. Next year, even though the nominal figure of expenditure will increase, but as a ratio of GDP is expected to reduce by 6 percentage points, which is good news. And then also the Bank of Ghana, is practicing tight monetary policy. In other words, the Bank of Ghana has decided not to finance government's budget, and today we are talking about 0% central bank financing. And you mentioned that we expect this disinflation to have impact on the policy rate and also the interest rate.
Yes.
The reason the BOG...
Yeah, since you mentioned the BOG, I just wanted to stay on that path, especially about the interest rate, because for the private sector and the people who have taken loans, they are looking at this, and then also how the Bank of Ghana's own inflation targeting policy will be influenced by this, because the policy rate was maintained at 30% at the last MPC, even though some persons were expecting at least a slight reduction because of the consistent reduction in the inflation rate we've seen over the period. That did not happen. Do you expect this 26.4% to influence at least a reduction in the policy rate?
Okay, so let businessmen and women understand that a lower inflation and a lower depreciation of the cedi is good. it means that their reduction or the depletion of their capital has slowed down. The BOG in their recent meeting indicated that even though we have seen a downward trend in inflation rates, we have also seen a downward trend in the budget deficits. We are in an IMF program where they are talking about large front-loaded fiscal deficit. In other words, the government must close the gap between revenue and expenditure. And so these are all good signs. But the question is, why wouldn't the BOG decrease the policy rate? And the response they gave to the media and to all of us is that there are still uncertainties in the global market, in the global economic outlook. So those uncertainties, they are not sure. In other words, there are some developments still happening in the global economy that the government doesn't have full control over. So if there are so much uncertainties in the global economic outlook, you do not want to, losing your monetary policies. You still want to keep it tight and project to see and wait to see what is happening in the outside world before you losing the policy. So that is the explanation they are giving us. Maybe in their next meetings in January and February, if the global economic outlook is a bit stable and all the uncertainties have been cleared, then we would experience a reduction in the policy rate and then a reduction in the interest rate ongoing. Right. Because the MPC is practicing inflation targeting, that is why most often than not, they want to increase the policy rate to fight inflation. But if they see that the global economic outlook has little uncertainties, then I'm sure in the first quarter of next year, businessmen and everybody should expect a reduction in the policy rate and a reduction in the interest rate as we go forward.
Before I let you go quickly, even though we're looking at the headline inflation, we look at the food inflation as well. And there's been some reduction in the food inflation, but then again, it is still high, because if you take a look at this, the headline food inflation rate, in May, for instance, we were talking about 51.8%. It went up to 54.2% in June, then also came down a bit to 32.8% in October. Now we're talking about 32.2%, right? Just 0.8 percentage points reduction in the food inflation. But if you disaggregate this data and then you look at the regional food inflation, does it concern you that some of the food growing areas or the food basket areas where food is produced for us here in Accra to eat, food inflation is high there? Dr. Sakode.
Yes, it's a concern that the food growing areas still have high food inflation rates. But let's understand the issue of food inflation. We have the local food inflation, also the imported food inflation. So perhaps the imported food inflation may be higher than the local. And also another reason that even if the local is still high, it could be because of the increase in prices of the inputs, i.e. fertilizer, pesticides, and all those things, all those inputs that are needed for food production. And so no matter how you describe this, if the food inflation is still high, it is high, and we must deal with it. I think that as a country, we must go deep down to identify what are the driving factors of food inflation. Is it because of storage? Is it as a result of transportation costs? Is it utility prices? Or what? We need to know, is it the cost of labor? Once we identify the causes, then we can offer solutions. So it is a concern, Alfred, that the food growing areas by now, they should be experiencing low food inflation in those areas. One thing I've observed also is a profiteering by the businessmen and women, how they take advantage of the situation and increase their prices astronomically. So I suggest, because when you compare, sometimes you compare the farm gate price and then the price on the market, there's a huge gap, very big gap that we see, and we must be concerned about this profiteering. One thing I propose to government, and I will say it on our network, is that as a country, we should start weighing foodstuffs in that way, it will help us. Like we do, we weigh them on scale.
Right.
Those of you who have visited the malls, you see that when you buy fruits, they weigh it on a scale.
True.
So we can introduce the scale weighing in our markets, Medina, Bobloshi, to control the profiteering in those markets.
Well, that's one of the ways, and Moral's wishing maybe, and it's going to be falling on listening ears. But thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Dosu Sarkodie is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Economics Department. And this is Ghana Tonight. Before we go, there's a statement from the Electricity Company of Ghana about a story that we did here on TV3, which has got some positive results as well. And they put out this statement earlier today indicating the siphoning of fuel. Now, the management of ECG's attention has been drawn to a publication, a TV3 publication, of a viral video showing the siphoning of fuel from an ECG boom truck. The staff involved in this alleged siphoning of fuel from the ECG boom truck with the registration number GV247414 has been identified as a driver stationed at the regional office of ECG in Cape Coast. A full-scale investigation has commenced in line with our disciplinary procedure. We take this opportunity to thank TV3 and wish to encourage the general public to also report any wrongdoing by our staff via our call center. They put it up there, 0302611611. And that's signed by William Boateng, Director of Communications of the Electricity Company of Ghana, and acknowledging the bit that we do here at TV3, First in News, to improve on their work. On behalf of the rest of the team, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Join us same time tomorrow. We have a big focus on the district level elections and matters arising. On behalf of the rest of the team, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.